Well, breaking news from whenever we recorded this, and when you see it, it won't be as broken. But I just read right before we came on to the show here that the Democrats' effort to force the Republicans and the Trump administration to release the Jeffrey Epstein files went down by a vote of 210 to 211, and they just shut off the voting after the Republicans knew they had enough votes to prevent it. But it's not that the Republicans didn't want to release the files. In fact, Speaker Johnson is saying Attorney General Bondi should release the Epstein files. And the Democrats cleverly seized on the opportunity, because they don't care, but they seized on the opportunity to sow dissension within the so-called MAGA camp. And basically the Republicans were saying, yes, we want to get this done, but we don't want to do it this way. We don't want to, So there was a procedural vote about whether to do a floor vote on whether to release the Epstein files, and the Republicans, by and large, voted against that. But it's not to say that they're not against it. And for the first time on a podcast with Benny somebody, is there a Benny?
Benny Johnson.
Benny Johnson.
Oh, so unrelated to Mike Johnson. So anyway, Benny Johnson's podcast, Speaker Johnson said that they would like to get that done, that they should release those. And apparently it's super rare for Speaker Johnson to break in any way with President Trump, who, as we talked about last week, has said, why don't we just move on? That guy's been dead for years. So there you have it.
Well, that's where we are today.
It's not going
Same
away.
place we were yesterday.
So, but the fact that Republicans allowed themselves to get cornered by the Democrats, basically, where they have to cast.
Well, that is a dog bites man story.
Yeah, but they have to cast a vote against something that they're in favor of, and in order to sort of walk this line between getting done what they think needs to be done at this point and being in conflict with the president that they never like to be in conflict with.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Speaking of the president, and this, Steve, I have to apologize to you and also thank you. I don't know how many times on this show over the years you have mentioned the name of Celena Zero, but it's got to be in the countless dozens of hundreds.
At least.
Many, many times. And I honestly don't think I've ever read anything by Celena Zero. So
your loss.
Yes. No, well, now I know that. But at the time, I didn't realize it. And in my mind, because of the way you were saying Celena Zero and because of the way you're connected with all the hip youngsters, I'm picturing Celena Zero as like a mid-20s, edgy kind of, writer of some sort who's terrific and a prodigy and everything. Turns out she's a grandma, like a community college graduate from Western Pennsylvania. And I don't know when this book came out, but I just listened in the past week since the last time we spoke. I listened to her book, which is called Butler. And it is an account of President Trump's near assassination in Butler, Pennsylvania. And then it goes well beyond that, though. It has a much broader context of basically, she doesn't say it this way, but I get the sense it's Celena Zero saying, listen, let me give you all in one place why I've been right for so long and why the mainstream media will never be right at any point.
Wasn't the anniversary of Butler just a couple days ago?
Sunday.
Yeah, it was Sunday, I think.
It's
The
so hard to
13th.
believe it's been a year, man. It's just crazy hard to believe.
I know, hardly anything's happened since then.
Well, and Celena Zero was actually, she was there and very close to the president. And the guy who was like her handler, making sure, because she was supposed to do an interview with the president before he spoke that day. And then he was late, so they moved it to after he spoke that day. They said, okay, you're going to be there for like 5 minutes you're going to have with the president afterward instead of 5 minutes before. And then, as things turned out, she didn't get it then. But this guy who was with her, actually, when the gunfire broke out, he took her down to the ground and was kneeling on her to keep her down on the ground and forcing her daughter, who was with her as a photographer, her daughter's apparently a professional photographer, And so he's got them on the ground, and he kept them on the ground for quite a long time until they were sure that the threat was clear. And he was, she's trying to get up at one point, and he said, "We don't know how many shooters there are." And so they kept her down there. Anyway, the next day, I think it was the next day, her phone rings early in the morning. She answers it. It's the former president saying, "Celena, how are you doing?" And she said, "I don't like to swear. I don't do it very often in conversation or in public places, but I don't know what came over me at that point." And she said something like, "Are you effing kidding me?"
The guy who got shot called to make sure she was okay.
He actually then called her back like a half dozen more times that day. And they had several long conversations. And I think the sense that I get was President Trump appreciated her because she was a fan in a sense, but she was not a blind fan. So like he is even in the past has tweeted out the fake news warning about something she wrote, but he appreciated her professionalism and also appreciated the fact that she was from that area of the country, like these are his people. Anyway, highly recommend the book, not just for the account of the assassination, which is in itself fascinating because you didn't really get much. You got the same things over and over again if you watch coverage of it. But then just for Zito's insights into the people who make up this new coalition that has essentially taken over the Republican Party. And repeatedly she says, Donald Trump didn't create this coalition. He is the result of this coalition. He's the result of this change that's happened in the country. But he didn't make it. And it's a fascinating book, and I highly recommend you listen to it or read it. It's called Butler by Celena Zito.
Yeah, I became aware of Celena Zito probably about 10 years ago. She was the first national-level journalist who not only treated Trump seriously, but she was the first person to take Trump voters and not treat them with disdain.
Yeah.
Or Trump supporters, I should say. It was 2015. Nobody had a chance to vote for him yet. It was his first election. And she really made a name for herself that way, although I had read her before, but she hadn't really caught my eye until then. And I think she's just the best, what we used to call an old-fashioned shoe leather journalist working at the national level. She may be the only one.
There were several times in the book where she was invited to be at an event. The president, now has like a personal relationship with her and it says, hey, make sure you invite Celena to this or whatever. She was invited to pretty serious, like big deal events that you'd want to go to if you were a national reporter who covered presidential politics or the election. And she would say, no, I'm going to stay in Pennsylvania and drive around to small towns and talk to people. Like rather than go to the spoon feeding, event where you go there and basically you're being handled. She was like, I think I'm going to go to this bar in, Pittsburgh and listen to what people, rather than watch the debate from the spin room, I want to watch the debate in a bar with a bunch of Pittsburghers who are blue collar folks. And
yeah, the spin room's useless.
Yeah.
Remember when Ann Coulter spoke up on that panel show and they were asking who they thought was going to win the Republican primary in 2016? And she said Donald Trump, and everybody just laughed and laughed and laughed. Remember that?
What an idiot.
What an idiot. What happened to her? Haven't heard from her lately.
She must still be doing stuff, but you're right. I haven't.
She's probably asking the same thing about me.
Yeah, that's right. She's like, remember when Bill Whittle said that thing about Mitt Romney back in the day? And the next president's going to come from the popular culture. But it's just when you read that, it's funny because on the one hand you go, wow, no wonder the mainstream media coverage was as terrible as it was. And she basically said, look, she said, nobody in the mainstream media is from the area of the country that essentially won the election for Trump. And it's basically in these, what, is pejoratively known as Rust Belt areas and, kind of blue collar areas. And it cuts across racial boundaries. And she said, the people who are getting hired at the Washington Post or the New York Times don't know these people. They don't live near any of them,
They,
and they never
they all
have.
went to the same colleges,
Yeah.
learned from the same professors. So even if one of them did come from somewhere in the Midwest, like I did, they've got all that drilled out of them by the time they enter the Washington press corps.
But anyway, it's a really, it's not. I'm sure it's not going to get New York Times bestsellers list status unless it already has. In which case, I apologize. But it's because of the nature of the book and because it's not hypercritical of Donald Trump, and takes a real cold view of like she said while she was watching the whole Biden Kamala Harris thing, and she kept thinking, well, these people have a tailwind, they have an opportunity here, and they blew it again. Like, why is she not being interviewed by anybody? Why, like she just couldn't understand why these people were whiffing on softball underhand pitches, and just every opportunity they had to make an impact, they blew it because they didn't understand who they needed to appeal to.
Well, also, she was so hopeless. I saw a liberal podcaster just a couple of days ago say he actually had her on the show and they canned it. They didn't release it because she was just so bad.
And didn't even go public with that until what, last week, maybe 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Very recently that went public. Yeah, Kamala Harris, being a progressive Democrat coming up through Bay Area politics, and then getting released on the national stage, that's like being the boy in the bubble getting set loose in a Wuhan lab. You are not prepared.
That's amazing.
Did you see AOC in Idaho?
No.
Yes, campaigning in Idaho.
For
president. She didn't announce it, but what else is she doing in Idaho?
Yeah.
Big rally.
Not Iowa.
Idaho.
Huh.
Yep, Idaho.
Well, she's got as good a chance as Kamala Harris.
Yeah, Idaho's going to flip in our lifetime. They're sending so many Californians there.
Wow.
Montana, too.
I would move there, but only if I could have my own private Idaho. That's what I would have.
Just hanging out with Fred Schneider.
That's right. Supreme Court says the education department can fire a bunch of people. And this is basically not a ruling saying go ahead and fire a bunch of people. It's basically saying that while the case is progressing through the system, and it's Linda McMahon versus somebody or other, that you can't stop President Trump from deciding how his education secretary or from the education secretary from the Trump administration from deciding how to run that organization. Now, when the actual underlying case gets to court, they may have fired another 4,000 people by that point.
Stop, you're killing
That's
me.
Right. I think they've cut like half the staff at the Department of Education so far. But however, the question that's likely to be, as far as I can tell, that's likely to be the basis for any opinion that the court renders will be whether the President of the United States can refuse to spend, or what they call impound, money that is allocated for a purpose. So the Congress sets up the Department of Education. That's Congress's thing. So he can't really eradicate that unless he gets Congress to do it. But if they allocate $52 billion this year, can he say, I'm only going to spend 50? And that, I think previously the court has ruled and said, no, he doesn't have the freedom to not spend the money they allocate.
If I recall correctly, it depends on how Congress allocates the money. If it's this many dollars for this specific purpose, then yes, the money has to go out of the Treasury.
Yeah.
If it is not, then the president is free to impound it.
So if it's not earmarked for a specific designated, congressionally mandated purpose.
Yeah. But if Congress says you have to spend X number of dollars on Z, then that's the law and the money goes out of the Treasury.
Yeah.
Well, I say fire anybody who's not actually named in the bill.
Anybody who's not named in the bill, is that what you said?
Yep.
I like it. And I mean, if I were ever to run for president, which will never ever happen, my campaign promise would be to eliminate anything in the executive branch that is not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution.
Yeah, completely, dude. 100%.
That would tidy
100%.
things up smartly.
Wouldn't it though? I wonder what it would do to the budget. It seems like that'd actually be a very, very simple calculation. Just find out what the expenditures are for Department of Agriculture, Education, Energy, subtract them from the amount of money we spend every year. Just find out what it would cost.
Yeah. I mean, the big three now, spending items in the budget aren't even entire departments. It's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on the debt.
Yep.
And after that, you really don't need to do anything.
Well, there is defense.
Speaking of defense,
which ironically, out of those four things, okay, yeah, you got to pay the interest. Okay, but out of those four things that are actual programs,
it's the only one that's
defense is the only
constitutional.
thing mentioned in the Constitution.
That's right.
Yeah. In fact, the Navy is mandated by the Constitution as well. It should be.
Victor Davis Hanson did a little 6-minute video that I saw on YouTube where he's talking about the amazing past 3 weeks for President Trump, and he enumerates some things like he managed to take out Iran's nuclear weapons capability without starting a war, and he lists several other things that are just impressive about the way he's gotten through this, and this all. Somebody has figured out the lesson that National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster understood, but was facing tremendous headwinds in the administration from other Trump appointees who were fighting against it, and that is, help the president put his agenda into practice. That's your job, to do it right, do it legally, do it constitutionally, and get it done. And your job is not to decide what the president's agenda should be. Your job is to facilitate the accomplishment of it. And reading that book, and the title is slipping me now, but it was like about his mere 18 months in the White House. But HR just gave me a whole new perspective on what was going on there. And I think President Trump has found some people now who are more of that ilk, more like McMaster, of saying, you know what, our job is to see to it that the president's agenda gets done. Yeah. And the other thing was, Patriot missiles going to Ukraine being paid for by EU countries.
Yeah, I love this. We're sending the weapons, but Europe is technically buying the weapons, and then they will send them to Ukraine. And Trump yesterday announced new, I'm not sure exactly what you call them. I've been referring to them as secondary tariffs. Mm-hmm. Russia has 50 days or less, is what Trump is saying, 50 days or less to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine, or they're going to be 100% tariffs on Russia, which doesn't matter. Russia doesn't make anything other than energy, and we're not buying that already. But there will be secondary tariffs of 100% on countries that are buying Russian energy.
Yeah.
And
that includes India.
Yeah, and China.
Yeah.
This and Europe. This is a huge deal. If anybody can whisper in Putin's ear, find a face-saving way out, it's going to be in Beijing.
Well, and what was the other thing that was related to that? Oh, NATO. Also, remember a few years ago, it was like, let's get out of NATO because nobody there is willing to pay their fair share to increase their own military budgets within those countries so that the United States doesn't have to be so entirely responsible for the defense of, strong countries like Germany, for example. And NATO is now saying, okay, the NATO countries are saying, okay, we'll do that. And in the words of Victor Davis Hanson, he was over at the NATO summit, and the other world leaders were calling him daddy.
Yeah, it was a NATO chief. I can't remember his name.
Isn't it Rutte, the guy who's also the German? I don't know how you pronounce it. Rutte.
I can't remember. Anyway, Germany's
Clan?
talking about actually doing what they say they're going to do. So who knows? That'd be nice. But I mean, right now, if Poland said, hey, you know what? It's time for a little payback. We're going to march on Berlin. I'm not sure the Germans could stop them.
There's no chance.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it's Trump was basically saying, hey, why are we footing the bill for the defense of these countries, 70 years after we had to go in and rescue them from the Third Reich?
Well,
they're up on their feet.
Sometimes phrasing matters. I keep hearing, why are we paying to defend Japan? We're not defending Japan. We are defending our interests in the Pacific, and that involves bases in Japan because we would rather fight our wars over there than much closer to home or at home. And that's been policy, by the way, in this country since Andrew Jackson. We talk a lot about the Jacksonian tradition in American politics, and, that's not getting involved in foreign stuff. No, that's Andrew Jackson is on the record saying, I'd much rather fight over there than over here.
So I've become
we're in Europe.
Go ahead.
Oh,
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we're in Europe not to defend them, but to defend our interests, which is keeping the peace in Europe. Now, if they're not going to help, then we need to start giving them warnings like Trump has been doing for years and maybe getting some results. But the thing of it is, there hasn't been a major war in Europe. The only major-ish war in Europe that we managed to avoid was the Franco-Prussian War, and that didn't last very long and only involved France and Prussia and the minor German states and didn't involve the oceans. But as soon as you get a European-wide war, it involves the oceans and it sucks us in.
Yeah.
John Adams did his best to avoid staying out of the Napoleonic Wars, and even he got us into the quasi-war with France.
But I think what Trump did here, though, is, and I think, obviously you realize this, he's not saying we have no business being involved in foreign wars or in having our troops overseas or anything like that. He's basically saying you guys are slackers and you should be picking up part of the tab here. Now, the United States is still going to have the vast majority of it, but these folks should be kicking in. And
also there are things we have to do that say Germany doesn't. We need a large navy because if we're going to fight our wars over there, we need a way to get our stuff over there.
This is what I disagree with. I've become an ardent isolationist, and I think we ought to just abandon the Navy, just completely abandon it, and set up 700,000 torpedo tubes right along the beaches on the entire West Coast. If they come within torpedo range,
windmills.
They come within torpedo range. They haven't got a chance.
I think every windmill that's offshore should have torpedo capabilities.
and long scythed blades on the end that skim the surface of the water like 3 inches at high tide, that kind of thing.
I can't remember what the hell it's called, but it's a version, I think, of one of our small diameter bomb.
Yeah.
That instead of having an explosive charge in there to blow up all the metal bits, and cut people up to death, it has spinning Ginsu blades that deploy and just chop people up without an explosion.
Nice.
Like, I don't know who thought of that, but I want to buy them a beer.
It goes right through their rubber shoes, and the blades still stay sharp. That's the most amazing thing about that weapon.
You could cut a can in half with one, but you wouldn't want to.
In Japan, the hand can be used as a knife, but this doesn't work with a tomato.
How long did the karate chop last as a
cultural phenomenon?
As a cultural phenomenon? Because I remember, like Man from U.N.C.L.E., all you had to do was walk up behind a guy and just go like that on the shoulder, and down he would go.
Well, everybody loves, kung fu fighting, but the. There's another story, and I had to read like 3/4 of the way into this story before I got the actual information that should have been in the headline. But the headlines that you're seeing in various news sources now are saying, new ICE policy blocks detained migrants from seeking bond. Okay, new Immigrations and Customs Enforcement policy is blocking detained migrants from seeking bond. Okay, so they have to stay in detention. They can't be out on the streets. You read well down into the story and you find this paragraph. The move marks a significant departure from decades of practice when immigration judges had the latitude to release someone from detention on a bond if they weren't deemed a flight risk. Immigration law states that all immigrants in the country illegally must be detained while their fates are decided. but with limited beds available in ICE jails, the government had considered the law effectively impossible to enforce. So it is not a new ICE policy.
It's the actual law.
It's the law.
I saw this.
And that's where alligator Alcatraz comes in.
I saw this last night. I think it must be true. I'm not 100%. I haven't sourced it. But somebody said that during the Biden administration, the FBI caught 0 of the top 10 most wanted criminals during the 4 years of the Biden administration. The FBI's top 10 most wanted, they got 0 of them. You know how many Kash Patel got so far?
More than 0?
He got 10.
Just 10? Only 10?
Only 10 of the top 10.
Well, yeah, but now we've got 10 more. Get to work, Cash.
But don't you find that just a little bit astonishing?
That's true.
I find that to be absolutely amazing.
Under Biden, it was like the 10 meh wanted.
You never catch the 10 most wanted, because if you catch them all, you still got another 10 most wanted. It's like the oldest man in the world never dies.
Yeah, got it. And you know how many people screw this up? If I'm in a bicycle race and I'm in second place and you pass me, what position are you in?
So you're saying it's the list of Theseus.
Yes. You'd be amazed at how many people will say you're in first place.
That wasn't mentioned in the setup for the scenario, but I guess you could be if you also pass him. Anyway, that's... I couldn't believe how far down in the story this was. And the story, let's see, because I want to see where it was. It was in the Wall Street Journal. Okay? So it's not like the Humpty Dumpty Press or something. These people have years of experience, and I'm going way down into the story. And now, oh, by the way, do you know where else? Listen to this paragraph. This is the penultimate paragraph in the story. The legal interpretation ICE is now using has faced previous legal challenges in Washington state, where advocates say immigration court judges in Tacoma for years denied bond to almost all of the immigrants there who have entered the country illegally. In Washington state! So this is a real hard right, trope of some sort, distortion of policy. Just don't, if you're going to read the mainstream media, just read the whole story. Because sometimes they feel compelled to actually put facts in there, but they don't want you to see them, so they don't put them near the top.
Oh, yeah. Since it's the anniversary of the attempted assassination of Butler, I'll just bring up some of those headlines that the press went with at first to try and downplay things.
The glass shrapnel?
One of them was something to the very close effect of Trump crowd startled by loud popping noises.
Yeah. I remember that, something like that, yeah.
And there was an incident of some sort, too. I forget what the word they used. It was like an incident, president leaves stage after incident. And I'm like, no, there were 8 gunshots from a hostile actor 400 feet away.
And my favorite was, as you said, was the glass fragments. He wasn't really shot. He was just hit by fragments from his teleprompter that when a high-speed bullet, ripped it to atoms.
God.
Remember that? It's like, no, he wasn't hit by a bullet. It was just glass from his teleprompter when the round that was aimed at his head,
What are these new right media influencers, like 80 jillion followers on X with, I don't know. I wish I could remember who this was. The famous photo that caught one of the bullets in flight, and it looks like a streak because, that's what happens. How did the photographer know to use such a high-speed shutter?
I saw that.
Because he's shooting in sunlight, you stupid son of a bitch.
With a long lens, probably.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
By the way, before the event...
but the replies. Oh, yeah. They were in on it.
Yeah.
We are heading into dangerous territory, man. And I'd like to say our side is immune to this, but we're not. We are, it's been 20 years since I started suffering the pain of watching people denying the moon landing, but now we're at the level where the number of people that believe the Earth is flat is approaching the number of people that believe the moon landing was fake. I mean, it's really, it's really, really, really terrifying. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect in neon letters. It's just like, I know nothing about nothing, so I'm going to give an opinion. And I mean, I see these people all the time that on Facebook feeds or on YouTube or on X, defending the flat Earth theory, and it just makes me want to weep. It's like the instupiding of America.
The instupid.
I got to remember that.
One of the
noble spirit embiggens the smallest man.
One of the things that Celena Zero pointed out, how you've always hear these stories about how Trump is a germaphobe, and if he has to shake hands with somebody, he always got some guy standing next to him. He's like Monk with a wipe.
Purell or something.
Yeah. Anyway, she said before, when she was supposed to go, she was supposed to interview him before the event at Butler, and then they told her that was off. And then suddenly her handler said, "Come on, you got to come here right now." And so they take her back into this tent where Trump was waiting to go on stage. And she had seen so many Trump rallies, like she knew how long it was going to be before he was on stage based on the playlist. Like she knew which songs preceded his coming out there. So this is just right before they take her back into this tent. And apparently before every event that he did, he took time to meet with first responders. They would bring back some firefighters and police officers and people like that. And he would personally talk with each of these people, thank them, shake their hands. There were hugs and stuff like that. And she said, the first time she got to watch this, because they brought her back into that tent. Like normally a journalist wouldn't be there, but they were like, they brought her back in that. And she said, I kept thinking, where's the Purell? Like, there's none of the, this lie you hear about the fact that he's a germaphobe and can't stand to touch the common people or whatever. And he's back there, hugging people and shaking hands with people. And his personal contact with the family of Corey Comparator, who was the firefighter who was shot, who died that day in Butler. And the other people who were injured, there were two other people who were seriously injured. But like he was very personally connected to those people, made a lot of phone calls and visited them in person. And when he came back in October and spoke again and to a crowd about twice as large, he made it a point of paying tribute to those people and talking to them personally. Anyway, he's just like, you just have to read this as a palate cleanser from the mainstream media.
I would just love to see him with like a lace handkerchief stuffed in his sleeve, doused in perfume, and every time he goes out into the crowd, stuff it back in there, these beastly peasants.
Where was it? It was in, what's the name of that town where they had the railroad derailment in Ohio, and Biden never went. There was and then a chemical spill and
Yep.
Yeah.
It wasn't a biblical name or something like Jericho or something like that?
Palestine.
Oh.
Maybe Palestine.
East Palestine.
Yes, East Palestine. Anyway, so I think Trump went there, and put on some galoshes over his dress shoes, because he's always nattily attired. He's always dressed well. And at some point, I forget when this was, J.D. Vance went there. This was before he was a vice presidential candidate. And he went there and waded into a stream that they said was toxic because of this accident. And he took a stick and he was and scratching it across the bottom of the stream, and you saw this gunk coming up off the bottom of the stream and everything, and apparently just went off and just this is disgusting and nobody's doing anything about this. He got down in it.
Wow.
And the same thing with Trump. He went to the places that Biden wouldn't go, that Kamala Harris wouldn't go. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm still ranting about this book. Can you get the idea
it's
that?
good.
No, it sounds like a great read. It's
read
one of those I've been meaning to pick it up, but I'm trying to pare back because my reading pile has not shrunk since probably middle school.
There was a Confederate general, and I don't think it was. I can't imagine it was Lee. It might have been Joe Johnson, But the Confederates were moving through mud, and they got they had a cannon that was, or maybe it was a supply wagon or something, got stuck in the mud, and this general got off of his horse. They had like 9 guys there on the axle wheels. This guy just jumped off his horse in his immaculate uniform, and goes down there and puts his back on the wheels, and says, "All right, boys, let's go. Let's get this thing out of there." And he pushes and pushes, and he's covered with mud, gets back on his horse, and that story spreads like wildfire throughout the entire army, and they'll follow him anywhere,
That's right.
Anywhere.
Makes a huge difference. By the
And
way,
here we are talking about it almost 200 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, in the big, beautiful bill, the thing that the Trump administration snuck in there that you guys weren't aware of is reducing the deduction that companies can take for breakroom snacks. So apparently, a lot of companies provide free coffee and snacks and bags of Skinny Pop or whatever in their break rooms. Now, I work for a company, and they have vending machines. And some of the it's weird. There's a particular beverage that I enjoy occasionally at work, and there are different vending machines in the break room. And from one vending machine, you can buy it for $3.79 a can, I think. From the other, for $1.75. It's the same stuff. But anyway, I don't know what it's like to get all this free stuff. But apparently that was a tax deduction for companies. And so this controversial move by the Trump administration to quietly take aim at this popular office perk of snacks. This was an actual story in Bloomberg.
I don't want to tell tales out of school or anything, but at Daily Wire, they had a break room that looked like the produce section at Ralph's. Man, I mean, it was deluxe. And I'm telling you, I'm serious. It really improves morale. It really, really does. It improved my morale.
Well,
it was. I think that's a legitimate business expense because, frankly, a lot of times what it means is you're keeping employees in the building working rather than having them go out to lunch. I mean, it's just.
You give
that's
a place
why they do it.
To get together. The building where I work has a fully loaded wet bar. There's a bar cart in my office.
That's right.
It's a really nice setup. I don't know what the tax situation.
I've got
is.
coffee
I
right
hope
here.
it's
I've got
not
water.
affected by the big beautiful law.
Steve's got a dedicated PA, and he stands there with a towel draped over his forearm.
That's right, a sommelier.
Exactly.
Actually, I no longer have a bar cart in my office. Melissa wanted it for the dining room when we did our first Thanksgiving. We started shifting, doing every other year Thanksgiving. We traded off with my mother-in-law so she wouldn't have to do it every year anymore. And Melissa's like, I need the bar cart for the dining room for Thanksgiving. I'm like, okay, fine, you can have it. I know you need as much counter space in there as you can get. And then she wouldn't give it back. It's been down there for like 10 years now.
That woman.
I'm giving up.
By the way, did you know that after the Biden administration essentially did a hostile takeover of the entire student loan business, where all student loans now, basically are coming through the federal government, that part of the Trump administration's move has been to reduce the role of the federal government in the student loan business, and there's more. There are new restrictions on how much students can borrow and how they repay, and the provisions in this law begin to reverse the government's near takeover of the $1.7 trillion student lending market. So more and more students are going to be getting private loans. They're not going to be going through the government to get access to that. There are going to be limitations on how much they can access that is government subsidized stuff,
I would make it a requirement. Number one, I would get the government out, but I would also put in some pretty common sense regulations for this new privatized student loan system, the way it used to be, which would be before a student can take a loan or the college can recommend it to the bank, the college has to put forth a program saying, if you borrow this much, this and to get this degree, this is what you can expect to earn with this degree. And then if that fails to materialize, the student later in life can discharge it through bankruptcy. Actually, some special kind of bankruptcy that doesn't affect the rest of your credit because the university made false promises to induce this.
I think the university
loan.
should be the co-signer.
Oh, absolutely they should. That would be the other part. The guy whose credit would be affected would be the university.
That's right. I think they'd be a little less cavalier about who they bring into the university.
They'd be a lot less cavalier about raising prices.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my journalism degree would be among the first on the chopping block. They're like, look, you can do it the way Jimmy Olsen did it. Just go and volunteer to be a cub reporter, get paid per gig. Actually, that's what I did. When I got out of college, I was working at a Mexican restaurant for, whatever minimum wage was at the time. And I was getting paid, I want to say, $15 a story to go to a school board meeting that would often last 3 or 4 hours, and then to stay up a couple more hours while writing the story and submitting that. At one point, I didn't even have a car, and I was riding my bicycle 5 miles out to where the newspaper was, and because you couldn't just submit it. In fact, early on, they tested with me a device where you had this like keyboard thing where you could type up a story. It wasn't really a computer. It was more like a typewriter. And then it had these 2 giant holes in it where you would put a phone receiver in it. And then you would press a button and it would make noises and it would feed the text like 1 character at a time through the phone line. You could upload your story.
That was the first modem. We had those at Coral Gables High School in '77. And that's when we first played that Star Trek game, which you didn't even have a monitor. You would just like just print it out on computer paper.
Yeah. And
we found out that if you spoke into the phone, you could hold up to the phone, you could hear the other side going, and if you went, and it would go, it was trying to figure out what you were saying.
Yeah, it's trying to negotiate the handshake.
Yep.
Hey, Steve Wozniak made a device that would do that.
The phone freaker,
that would do the long distance calls. By imitating those noises. Anyway, so it's just another positive thing, I think, in a week where, every week's like this, but the focus is always on something that's not that. Like, the mainstream media loves nothing better than the fact that everybody's going to be focusing on Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm not saying this is a totally insignificant issue, but I think what it's doing is it is masking the fact that the administration is accomplishing some things that have been the sweet dreams of conservatives for a long time, and that's just kind of passing underneath the radar.
It's kind of like the New START treaty that Obama negotiated during his administration. I don't like talking about him very much, but I wanted to get sort of an insider's take on this treaty. And so I asked my father-in-law, who's retired Air Force and was working for missile defense at the time. So, very involved and very knowledgeable what was going into New START. And I said, so is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal? And he said, well, which part of it are you talking about? And that's you got to call it the big, beautiful law now.
Yeah, that's right. It's not a bill.
It's been passed and signed. It's a law.
I think we should call it the large, lovely law.
There you go. Get that alliteration going. I love it. And that there's some bad stuff in there. It spends too damn much.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good stuff in there, especially in these details like Scott's been pulling out of this thing.
I couldn't believe it when I heard that ICE's budget was being multiplied by a factor of 20.
Oh wow, really?
And that ICE now has a larger budget than the defense budget of something like all but 5 nations on the earth or something like that. It sounds like they're serious.
And I'm hoping they have figured out a way to so that doesn't become a ratchet and always go up from there. But once they've concretely dealt with the inflow and they've gotten rid of a lot of people who have been here taking advantage of the fact that we don't enforce our laws, then they can return to a sensible process, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement doesn't have to be such a monstrous.
Yeah, I hope so too. And not only that, one of the things Trump announced a couple of weeks ago, or maybe the Pentagon announced, I can't remember, that another big section of the border has been effectively militarized. I'm like, why? they've reduced border crossings just by threatening to enforce before Trump was even sworn in. And since he's been in office, they're down like 95% or more. And the trend line was actually getting better in Biden's last year because he started making noise, or is it White House started making noise about enforcing the law, and that cut things off just a little bit because he was trying to pivot to the center for re-election. So crossings are down crap tons since 2023. I don't know what kind of militarization we need, really.
Bill, I don't know if you're seeing this out in the greater LA area, but according to a story in the Los Angeles Times, the number of people living on the streets dropped nearly 10% in LA County this year.
That's true.
So the numbers are going down for numbers of people in shelters, but more importantly, the number of what they call unsheltered homeless people. So the people who are not living in shelters and are just out there on the streets is dropping fairly significantly.
There used to be 10 guys living underneath the overpass by my house. Now there's only 9.
That's 10% right there.
That is it's a provable fact.
Oh, what was that?
Did we lose you, Steve? We lost your picture for a second. You didn't.
Am I okay here?
You're back.
Okay. Everything looked fine on my end. So
Sweet.
Cool. Hang on. I'm looking for this thing that ran on Instapundit earlier. Where the heck is it? It was... Oh, here we go. So the California Senate has passed SB 549, granting Los Angeles County authority to purchase fire-destroyed lots for minimal cost and convert them into low-income housing.
That's right, in Pacific Palisades.
Uh-huh. So, suckers.
That's the kind of thing that could actually flip California.
So after holding up people's own ability to clear their lots and to get new construction going on there, they're now basically exercising eminent domain.
Now the other side of the assembly hasn't passed it yet, and Newsom hasn't signed it, but
he wants to.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's so many delicious developer dollars they can scoop up. So much graft.
And he was saying to the people who lost their homes, well, you can rebuild, of course, but you can't rebuild what you had before. I mean, we got to be environmentally conscious, and we got to be socially conscious, and and we're going to build LA 2.0, and let's put some low-income housing in the most prime real estate in America. I don't live in Pacific Palisades because I can't afford to, but it is absolutely gorgeous up there. Except gorgeous.
Now it looks like dragons burned it down from Game of Thrones.
I actually flew over there, over Pacific Palisades a couple of months ago. First time I've been in a small airplane in 7 years or something. And what I found was we were coming towards Pacific Palisades from Malibu. And what I found was that not nearly as much area as I suspected had been burned. It was much smaller area than I thought. But inside that area, it looked like Hiroshima. It was just... Yeah.
But I mean, Palisades, that's not a huge neighborhood.
It's not.
It's just exclusive, is my understanding. Yeah.
There's for some reason, your discussion about that reminded me of a video I saw. I think it was a BBC show about a discovery of a Homo sapiens skull in some dig somewhere. And it shocked them because they were able to, with their various dating methods, they said that we used to believe that our species was 200,000 years old. But what this showed was that the species was actually 300,000 years old, at least. And that's a 33% increase. And a bunch of people in the comments section were like, it's a 50% increase.
50% increase. Yeah.
They're like, how did this get on the BBC? It's a science program.
Yeah, the average reporter is 27 years old and knows literally nothing outside of politics.
But she was
Ben Rhodes said that during the Obama administration.
as one of my favorite
roads.
local journalists said, there was a newspaper in Frenchtown, New Jersey, and this guy was a photographer who was the editor of the paper, and he took a picture of this woman floating in an inner tube down the Delaware River, which is right there by Frenchtown, and there was a dog swimming up next to her with like a stick in his mouth, and his caption for the picture said, "Fetching is the way to describe this young woman and her dog." That's journalism. They don't have it like that anymore.
Three-legged chickens.
By the way, don't work out. That's the message of a new, apparently very scientific study that was reported on in the Washington Post on what causes obesity. And they studied a little more than 4,000 people around the world, and they actually tracked. Apparently, you can figure out people's energy consumption if you test their urine, like you give them some kind of water to drink and how it comes out, then, anyway, some sort of sciencey thing is going on there. And what they found is that where we used to think that hunter-gatherer tribes, for example, or, people who are herders or farmers or whatever, they're much more active, and so that's why they don't have a lot of obesity. But we, sluggards, sitting around in our offices in our comfy chairs, that we're fat because we don't do anything. Apparently, as the star of the TV show Poker Face would say, BS. This is not the case, and that in fact, they found that across the board, if you adjusted for the size of the person, proportionally, that the people who are hunter-gatherers aren't using substantially more energy than the people who are, working in management positions in the United States or whatever. And that even though they weren't testing for this, it seems much more likely that it's what you're eating and how much of it than any kind of, and they're not saying you shouldn't work out, but they are saying it's not the factor we thought it was, because for years the trope has been it's this fat, lazy, sofa-dwelling Americans, that's why we're all fat. And as it turns out, it may be, what you're sticking in your blowhole that really has more to do.
It's not fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, the corn syrup's poison.
We love us some carbs. And so, anyway, so the
Cheeto, the crunchy Cheeto is a magical invention.
That's right.
I don't allow myself to have them very often.
What was I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was Corn Pops back in the 1920s. There was an advertisement back when they used to do like full page ads with huge headlines and then like 6,000 words of copy for products. And it was in the story, the book called Scientific Advertising by Claude C. Hopkins, written in 1923. Anyway, they had this ad for like Corn Pops that said, the headline said, "Cereal shot from guns." They're
Corn
just
Pop was a
describing
bad
how you
dude.
make puffed wheat or rice or whatever.
We shoot it from guns.
That's right.
At orphans.
And he was at orphans, and he was making a point that if you're the first one to claim something, even if it's an ordinary part of your process, like there was some beer that claimed that it was taken from the bowels of the earth at exactly 52 degrees. Well, apparently all water down under the earth is about 52 degrees. But if you grab that claim first, you own it. So we ought to think about that for this show.
Did they shoot the beer from guns?
They had beer shot from guns. That's right. Anyway, so do not eat the donuts, but then also don't feel like guilty that you missed your workout today, because it's not going to make much difference. Do I have anything else here? Oh, this, Bill, I thought of you when I read this. At the major, apparently Mars, like the candy bar people, also is a pet food maker, which is always scary. And what they found was that over the years, the pet food company had become much more interested in and friendly toward dogs but not so much toward cats. And they realized at some point, the new CEO of the company or whatever realized that they're basically ignoring the needs of cats because cats, nobody brings their cat to work. You know, like at the pet food company, people would have their dogs there, but nobody's cat was there. And like,
Right.
they just didn't feel a connection with cats. So now they're making a conscious effort to get to know cats. And they're finding out, for example, that cats don't like sweet things. And they basically they said the company had been treating cats as if they were small dogs.
Well, cats outnumbered dogs as pets, what, 20 years ago, 30 years ago or something?
It's been a long time. Yeah, it was 80s, maybe as late as the
something like
90s. Yeah,
And-
I had cats when I was single and when I was a little kid. My family was always dog people, but when I was like 3.5 years old, something like that, I just got it in my head that I needed a cat, probably because I'd never seen one before. I just pestered my mom until she got us a cat. My grandfather said he was going to shoot it.
Yeah, my dad was that way too.
And instead he fell in love with her. But the second cat we got, this little tiny 6-pound black Burmese named Samantha, she got down to 5 pounds in the summer because we lived out in the suburbs, and she wouldn't eat her Meow Mix. She was outside eating voles every day and occasionally a rabbit. And we know this because she would leave the guts and sometimes a couple of bones on the back step.
As a present.
You know, I suddenly realize who Steve reminds me of. Raymond Reddington. Do you know who I'm
Not
talking
the
about?
Raymond
No
Reddington.
clue who that is.
Raymond Reddington is the star character on The Blacklist, a TV show. And he's played by, what's the guy? Famous actor.
Well, that narrows it down.
Completely.
I know the show you mean. I watched that for
Yes.
a couple of seasons with Melissa, and then I went so far off the rails that
Yeah.
I'm done.
As every show usually does.
Yeah.
But what
James
Reddington-
Spader.
James Spader, yeah. So what Reddington does so well is he'll start telling a story and he'll go like, it was a 6-pound black Burmese.
That's a pretty good James Spader.
And that's when you said that phrase, I was like, why does that sound so familiar? It's Spader. It's Raymond Reddington.
Oh man.
You should, if you haven't watched The Blacklist, watch just the first season and then give up. But
Where the show went off the rails was the whole premise of the show is that if I remember correctly, he's like the spy guy and he recruits the spy girl whose husband is pure evil.
yeah,
And then
and then he isn't.
behind the scenes, she gets pregnant and they got to kind of write her out of the show. So they spent a season making the husband not evil anymore so he could be the new star. And they actually, this is where I gave up. As a part of his purging, for lack of a better word, they had him chained up in an abandoned cargo ship.
I forgot about that.
Like literally chained up in a cargo ship to, purge him of his evil. And I'm like, okay, I'm out.
So
I'm done.
So here's the thing about the cats, by the way, Bill, and you probably experienced this yourself. If you go to Google, don't do this right now, but if you go to Google and you start typing, does my cat, let me ask you former cat owners and current cat owners, what's the next phrase after does my cat that people are searching for?
Oh, I gotta know.
I don't know.
Does my cat love me?
Oh,
Yep, there it is. I can confirm I did it right here. No, your cat would kill you and eat you if it could.
So
It's
cats
just a
don't have
matter
the
of
same
size.
kind of bonding tendencies that dogs do. But basically, this company, it reminded me of the scene from Scrooged, where they're doing market research, and Bill Murray's character said, "We're doing market research, and we're going to start a channel." Or somebody on the show anyway said that, or in the movie said, "We're going to start a channel for cats." Not right away. First, we'll start out by just putting in little cat-friendly elements into existing shows. Like maybe you have a hero in one of our regular shows who occasionally lets a piece of string dangle out of his pocket.
I haven't watched that movie in too long.
Anyway, so it's a story about catitude, and that's this pet food giant is trying to understand cats. And what amazed me about that was you would think if anybody understood the cats, it would be the people who are making their food.
My God, man, it would be their biggest market share, be the biggest piece of their pie, and it's incredible to me that they could be that stupid.
Well, it's like, I think a lot of things, like people make assumptions and then you kind of have this self-reinforcing loop where you think your assumptions must be true. And because the cats are not real communicative, and like Steve said, they're out there chugging down voles in their spare time.
Oh, yeah.
Comedian Nate Bargatze says like his cat doesn't tell him, hey, I'm not hungry tonight. I just had 6 rats,
I just yesterday on Steven Cruiser's recommendation watched Nate Bargatze's little routine on The Sixth Sense.
Oh, yes.
And that is just a great fit. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it.
Oh, it's awesome.
Go look it up on YouTube. And it's not really about The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
That's as much as I'll say.
And I think it's funny when he goes, he starts talking about it, and he said, now, I'm sorry, I should say spoiler alert here, but come on. The movie came out 30 years ago. If you haven't seen it by now.
It's a really good bit.
Are you guys going to go see, I don't know if it's out yet, are you going to see the new Superman?
I am, actually.
And I know that you're very fussy about these kind of things, so why are you going to see this one?
Because a couple of friends are going. They invited me to go with them. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
Okay.
That's a good reason, though. That's a really good
Otherwise,
reason.
I would
with
not.
Friends. Hell yeah.
Just to be nice.
I've read a bunch of reviews on it, where I settled pretty quickly on I'll wait till it's on streaming or whatever. But the kindest reviews from critics who I know understand the genre and what you have to do to make a good Superman movie gave it generally positive reviews. I'm talking about Sonny Bunch, The Critical Drinker, and one other who, in a mostly positive, 51% positive review, still called it weird.
The trailer that I saw, the only thing that I thought looked interesting about it was the guy playing Lex Luthor.
And I've read a couple of reviews, maybe more than a couple, that say he's just horribly miscast in the role, which is a shame. I like Nicholas Hoult a lot.
Yeah, they only played
ever since About a Boy.
I do not want to see Crypto the Superdog.
No.
And the fact that he's named Crypto, I feel like they're marketing there. They're trying to sell a Bitcoin or something.
Well, here, what really turned me off of the movie, and this is where nobody seems to get Superman. Unless Superman is really something very close to how Chris Reeve portrayed him, which is just essentially decent, good, and most importantly, unflappable. If he is not those things, then Lex Luthor is right and Superman has to be destroyed.
Yeah.
And
you can't have that running around.
Exactly. And they ran this, it wasn't a teaser, it wasn't a trailer, it was just kind of this scene that they put out on the internet as a preview, I guess. And it was Clark and Lois doing this interview. She's interviewing him as Superman, but he's not wearing the costume or anything because they're already involved together. And she gets under his skin.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that seemed fake.
Well,
fake news.
Lex Luthor's right.
Nothing gets under Superman's skin.
Yeah.
Because he's Superman. That's right.
Well, and that's the thing. You have to sit that guy down and go, listen, I'm sorry, you don't get to have a bad day.
Well, that's why the first movie was so great because well, first of all, Glenn Ford as Jonathan Kent, and there's that scene where, all the kids who are on the football team are making fun of him and he walks home and his dad puts his arm around him and says, I know it's tough. I know you could, be the biggest star and score all these touchdowns, but that's not why you're here. That's not what God put you on the earth for. And you could just tell that, you get 10 years of that and you're going to turn out to be frickin' Superman.
Yeah, see, I probably wouldn't have done so well with that fatherly responsibility. I'd be like, listen, Clark, let's be honest. You're a frickin' alien from a different planet.
I would have been like,
freak.
You and I, my boy, are going to make ourselves some serious bank.
My favorite moment, and there are so many of them, in the 1978 movie, is when Superman makes his debut on that big night in Metropolis, and Lois is dangling from the helicopter atop the
from the World Trade
the
Center.
Daily Planet building, and Superman flies up and catches her.
I got you.
And he says, "Don't worry, miss, I've got you." And she says, "You've got me. Who's got you?" As she looks down. And Christopher Reeve, I don't know if this is in the script or if he ad-libbed it, just goes,
Yeah.
"Of course I've got this. I'm Superman."
I love the scene where they have this like kind of romantic meeting on a balcony, and she's like, "What color underwear am I wearing?" And she was standing behind a flower box that was apparently lined with lead, and he couldn't see. But then after she stepped out, he later goes, "Pink," and then a little later she goes, "Do you like pink?" And I just thought that the way that scene was played, with the pacing of it,
And that's as risque as you want a Superman movie to get.
Yeah, I
it
agree.
was perfect.
My favorite. Actually, it's funny because when she fell off the World Trade Center, and she's falling a pretty good distance, and Superman swoops down from below and catches her, and I'm thinking, well, if she hits the stationary pavement, that's going to be fatal. But now the pavement is moving up towards
That's
her
right.
at,
The
at,
closing
at
speed
60 miles
has
an hour.
just-
So it's just doubled. He's going to catch her in his arms, and her head and her feet are just going to detach and just continue
he actually has
down.
to speed up to her and then dive
That's exactly what he would have had to do.
and then catch her
Yeah.
on the dive.
What I liked about the first season of The Boys before that show went off the rail is the show took a darkly comic look at how superpowers might actually work in the real world with this kind of physics. And I mean, the opening scene was their Flash type character accidentally running through a pedestrian who stepped out into the street. And the pedestrian just,
Missed.
Vaporized, yeah.
yeah. And
way,
it's like the first scene of the show, and you're like, oh, I got to see where this is going.
I don't know if it's out yet again, but it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws, and I just watched a video the other day of how they went through to restore the original negatives. They found all the negatives, and they went through, and it was amazing. They were showing these shots of how, like, the negatives have discolorations places, they have scratches, they have like stretched areas. And they're going through, they digitized all that, and then they do what we can do now, which they circle the scratch, and then the scratch just goes away. They redid the sound to make it better, and there's a little interview with Steven Spielberg, and he says the version of Jaws that you're going to see is better than the version that I saw when I made it, My wife does not. She does not like shark lore. So, anyway, but I said, what I think about this film? I don't think of it as a shark movie or even a horror movie. I think of it as a really good story with some fantastic actors.
Yeah.
And just so well done in every way. And the shark is almost like tangential to that.
Dreyfus said something like that I guess it was on the 50th anniversary because it was just a short time ago. But Dreyfus was saying, we didn't know if he was a first-time director, and the shark wasn't working. He said, but we knew we were going to have a great movie because we had the three of us and we were great.
Yeah.
If you don't own the 4K version that it was the result of that restoration, just get on Amazon and buy it. And if you don't have a 4K player, buy the 4K player. It's absolutely stunning. It's just a beautiful train.
I saw it in a theater, needless to say, and that movie scared the bejesus out of me. That movie scared me to death.
I went with a young woman who I, throughout high school, had hoped would become my girlfriend, but she could never maintain that for more than a couple of weeks. And we went together to see Jaws, and we're sitting there, and I think it was the first movie anyway. It's been so many years now. But this little boy goes into the water, and all of a sudden, my sort of girlfriend grabs my knee and digs her fingernails into my knee and shouts in the theater, "Scott, don't let him get the little boy." And
if it's the first one, he gets the little boy.
I'm sitting there going, "Oh, please don't get the little boy. This hurts."
Please let go of my knee.
That's right. Like, I didn't say that out loud, but in my mind, I'm like, all of a sudden I became a believer in God. I was like, "Oh Lord, please don't let him get the little boy."
When that head comes out of that hole in the boat, man, on the underwater dive, I just lost my mind.
Yeah. Well, I saw some of the cleaned up versions, and they did like a wipe where they show you the original version, and then they wiped it, and it is phenomenal. And to think that they pulled off all of that, and obviously you've got Benchley's book, I'm sure, was pretty darn good.
The three best shot on film older movies, four. That the 4K transfers just make you go, wow, somebody loved these movies when they restored these, are all Spielberg movies, and it's Jaws and the 3 Indiana Jones flicks.
Oh. Well, and they sunk I wouldn't be surprised if it cost them more to restore that film than it cost them to make it the first time.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, after inflation,
yeah.
If you don't count inflation, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if there should be a theatrical release of that. I'd be amazed.
I thought there was going to be. I thought that was the point, but no.
There's I'd be shocked if there weren't.
Yeah.
In fact, we've got a theater in town that does those, and they also sell wine, so we like going to that one. But
I just don't want to see it in 3D.
Oh no. There's a documentary, I think it's on Netflix, called Jaws at 50 that Melissa and I watched over the weekend, and it's a really, really good documentary. Spielberg's in it, everybody's in it.
I have to. I'm going to make life difficult for myself. I probably have to include this now at the end of the show, at the end of the Backstage show. Have you guys? Have you seen the trailer for Jaws 19?
No.
Oh, it is.
Let me make a note.
It is French kiss perfect. It is.
French kiss? Don't you mean chef's kiss?
Chef's kiss, yes. Yes. Well, it's French kiss perfect.
No tongue when you're talking about Jaws, please.
Chef's kiss perfect.
This time it's really, really personal.
I dare you to watch that.
I will put it there. I'm going to have to watch it alone. I cannot. It's funny because my wife grew up in a landlocked state in the middle of the country. But that movie really shook her.
Well,
wow.
I was in Key Biscayne, Florida, and we were out on the water pretty much all the time, and it shook me too.
And I had no trouble going back into the ocean, like down in New Jersey. I would go in almost until the water covered the tops of my feet after I saw that movie.
We went sailing not long after Jaws, and we're out in Biscayne Bay. We used to go sailing a lot when I was a senior in high school, and we were all in the water, and we saw a fin going through the water, and we walked on water to get back into that boat. Turned out it was a dolphin, but man, when you're in the water, and I mean, it was probably like a week after seeing Jaws. It was like, nope.
Well, you know that if you're in water, the key is, like, if it's clear water, that's great. You can see to the bottom. That's terrific. But below the line to which you can see, like as far down as you can see, everything from that line down is sharks. Like,
that's right.
Just solid
sharks all the way down.
Sharks all the way down. That's right.
No.
Oh, even in a lake. Like, I get that sense. Like, seriously, when you're like in a freshwater lake, you're just like, oh, we don't know what's down there.
I went, I don't know, 3-4 years ago now, maybe even more, 4 or 5 years ago now. I was water skiing in Lake Coeur d'Alene, and I remember being in the water and thinking, there's no sharks here. I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about it at all, because I did a fair amount of body surfing and stuff, and it's always on your mind, especially in California. Not so much in Florida.
Yeah.
Did you ever see a snapping turtle? Have you ever seen one?
I've seen snapping turtles, yes.
No. I've seen a snapping turtle very, very close snap a boat oar in half.
They can put a hurting on you.
Yeah, they're not nice at all.
Now, like most creatures, they just want to get away from you. I mean, that's like that. There's not that's the thing I always have to tell myself. Anytime I was out walking in the dark a couple weeks ago, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I'm back in this park on this sidewalk, and I'm walking through the woods, and all of a sudden, just around the next curve, I see a coyote. And he's just like, I don't know, 50 feet in front of me. And then by the time I got to the corner, no coyote. And I just wanted to shout after the coyote and go, look, it would have been better if you had sat down in the sidewalk and just waited for me to pass. Now that you've gone into the woods, I don't know where you are. If I can see you, I'm okay.
He's not going down with 3 barrels in him. Not with 3 barrels.
That's right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have burned up all the Betamax today, and we can't wait to get about making this week's episodes of Right Angle, largely because you are the wind beneath my wings. And you make it possible for us to do this as you have for these many years, and we couldn't do it without you. So for Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thank you to you for being a member at BillWhittle.com and making all this possible.